It was a November night, cold rain beating down on the trees of Central Park. Liam Sanders was offering a blanket to an elderly man who had taken refuge on a bus stop bench. The blanket was one he had just received from a church charity event. "But won't you get cold too?" the elderly man asked, looking up at Liam worriedly. "I'll be fine. I have another one." Liam responded with a smile, though in reality, it was his only blanket. Up until 3 years ago, he had been one of the most promising doctors at the New York General Hospital's pediatric department, known among families with particularly difficult cases as the miracle doctor, and highly esteemed by his colleagues for his genuine personality and reliable skills. However, everything changed with the sudden death of his father, Edmund. Right after receiving news of his father's death, an anonymous letter accusing Liam of medical malpractice was sent to the hospital. Though the accusations were baseless, he was barred from practicing while an investigation took place. "It's a temporary measure," said the hospital director, but Liam knew something was off. The suspicious timing of the accusation seemed like a scheme. Things got worse when he tried to sort out his father's estate. He discovered that most of the assets had already been transferred to other accounts, and the house was about to be sold. A woman named Vanessa Hart, claiming to be an acquaintance from his father's hospital days, had the will. Liam tried desperately to uncover the truth, but felt powerless against the cleverly manipulated documents. Consulting a lawyer only confirmed that everything appeared perfectly legal on the surface. Before he knew it, his bank accounts were frozen, and his credit cards were unusable. In just a few months, Liam had lost everything, from a luxurious apartment to living on the streets, from a frontline doctor to a homeless man. But Liam never lost hope. He continued to read medical journals every morning at the public library, learning about the latest treatments and research, and tended to the minor injuries of people he met on the streets, always careful not to miss any serious symptoms. "You should see a doctor," he would advise, often receiving skeptical looks from those wondering how a homeless man could offer medical advice. But Liam didn't mind those looks. Tonight, after giving the old man the blanket, he quietly started walking again. The rain was still falling, its coldness a mere reminder of his past life. One day, Liam muttered as he looked up at the sky, "I will reveal the truth and restore my father's honor." His resolve grew stronger each day, even if it meant sleeping on the streets in a torn coat. For he still held on to his pride as a doctor and his compassionate heart, which no one could take away. As the sound of rain softened and the eastern sky began to brighten, signaling the start of a new day, Liam headed to his usual spot at the library. His battle continued. What he didn't know was that this rainy morning would significantly change his life. On his way to the library, Liam stopped in front of a bakery he frequented. The owner, a kind woman, would give away the previous day's unsold bread to homeless people at the opening each morning. "Good morning, Liam," the owner said, handing him a paper bag while looking at him with concern. "It must have been tough last night with all the rain." "Thank you," Liam replied, gratefully taking the bag. "I stayed under the library's eaves, so I didn't get too wet." In reality, he had been chased away by the library's security guard and had spent the night at a subway entrance. But he saw no need to worry the kind-hearted owner with that detail. The bag contained still edible croissants and bagels. Liam took half and, as usual, saved it for the friends he'd meet in the nearby park. Upon reaching the library, he found a few people already lined up for the opening, including elderly men who lived on the streets. and students who came to study early in the morning. "Doctor," a raspy voice called out from the line. It was a man with asthma. One of the few street dwellers who knew Liam had been a doctor. "Your breathing technique really helped ease my attack yesterday." Liam nodded quietly. Even if he couldn't work on the front lines, his desire to help people never faded. It was his very reason for being. As soon as the library opened, Liam headed straight for the medical journal section, particularly looking for articles on pediatric treatments. Since losing his smartphone, he had carried around an old, worn notebook in which he meticulously took notes. "I will someday," he vowed to himself, recalling the days he walked the hospital corridors in his white coat, the smiling faces of children, and families tearfully saying thank you. Those memories were now a significant force sustaining him. In the afternoon, Liam left the library and headed to a church, where a volunteer meal service was taking place. On the way, he stopped on a street lined with high-rise buildings, at the site where he and his father had once run a clinic. Now, a large corporate office building stood there. "Father," Liam whispered internally, "I will reveal the truth and restore your honor." The wind brushed coldly against his cheek, heralding the arrival of winter. Yet, inside Liam, a flame of hope burned quietly but steadily, never to be extinguished. The Montague family's living room was filled with a heavy atmosphere. Ellis stood by the window, his back straight. Opposite him, his stepmother Vanessa sat elegantly on an expensive sofa, sipping tea. "I've reviewed the report from the charity board," Vanessa said, setting down her teacup with a cold gaze directed at Ellis. "You've exceeded the budget by 20%. "Yes, but I've covered the extra expenses from my personal account," Ellis replied calmly. "I haven't strained the board's budget at all." "That's not the point," Vanessa's voice grew colder. "Remember your place. As the heir to the Montague family, you should act more cautiously." Ellis swallowed a deep sigh. He had been genuinely happy to meet his new mother when his father William remarried Vanessa 5 years ago, following the loss of his biological mother as a child. "I hear you've also decided on the donation to the foster care facility on your own," Vanessa continued accusatorially, without consulting the board. "It was an urgent matter," Ellis replied, looking out at the garden. "The facility's heating system broke down, and the children were suffering from the cold. Such sentimental decisions show your weakness." At those words, Ellis straightened his back even more. Weakness, that was the trait Vanessa despised the most. In reality, Ellis was anything but weak. As his father's company secretary, he handled complex tasks and was trusted as the head of various charitable activities. However, to Vanessa, any display of compassion was seen as nothing but weakness. "By the way," Vanessa's tone suddenly shifted, "isn't it time you seriously considered marriage?" Ellis turned around in surprise. "Marriage?" "Yes, you're 29 years old. It's not strange to start thinking about marriage," Vanessa said with a meaningful smile. "Actually, I have someone in mind." "I have no plans to marry," Ellis replied immediately. "I want to focus on charity work and my father's business for now." "I thought you'd say that." Vanessa slowly rose from the sofa. "But this isn't a suggestion. It's the policy of the Montague family." At that moment, Ellis felt a chill run down his spine. Whenever Vanessa mentioned family policy, it invariably involved some scheming plan. "As part of our charity work to improve our family's image," Vanessa continued in a meaningful tone, "we've decided to support the rehabilitation of homeless people. And as a symbol of this, I want you to marry one of them. Are you joking? Ellis's voice trembled. Do I look like someone who jokes? Vanessa's eyes gleamed sharply. I've already found a candidate. A former doctor, now homeless. He would be the perfect symbol for our charitable efforts. Ellis was at a loss for words. It was clear this was his stepmother's new scheme. However, he couldn't yet discern her true intent. I won't accept any objections, Vanessa declared sternly. Meet him tomorrow. He spends his time on a bench in Central Park. His name is Liam Sanders. Hearing that name sent a strange premonition through Ellis's heart. As if it was a sign that this man would significantly change her destiny. Leaving the drawing room, Ellis returned to her own room and sighed deeply. Outside her window, the autumn twilight gently colored the garden. However, her heart was clouded with gloom. Marriage. And to a homeless man she didn't know. What kind of scheme could possibly be behind this unreasonable command? The next morning, upon arriving at Central Park, Ellis stopped and observed from a distance the man sitting on a park bench. Despite wearing a torn coat, there was a strange dignity in his posture. He held a medical journal in his hands and was reading it intently. This was Liam Sanders, the former doctor turned homeless man his stepmother had spoken of. Ellis took a deep breath. She hadn't slept at all the previous night. Proposing marriage to a stranger was an unimaginable situation. But Vanessa's word was absolute. Failure is not an option, Vanessa had told her that morning. Show me your persuasive skills. Approaching quietly, Ellis stopped where she could enter Liam's field of vision. Mr. Sanders, may I speak with you? Liam looked up, their eyes meeting. His eyes held a determined light that seemed out of place for a homeless person. What can I do for you? Liam's voice was calm, with an intellectual tone. Ellis sat down on the adjacent bench. My name is Ellis Montague. I have a proposal for you. Montague, Liam murmured quietly. From the charitable Montague family? Yes, Ellis nodded, momentarily at a loss for words. She had practiced what to say, but now facing him, all her words felt hollow. What I'm about to say might sound far-fetched, Ellis said, looking directly into Liam's eyes. Would you consider marrying me? Silence followed. Liam's expression stiffened momentarily. Then a mix of complex emotions appeared. Is this some kind of joke? His voice was low, filled with wariness. No, Ellis shook her head. This is a formal proposal. However, she continued, choosing her words carefully, it would be a marriage of convenience. Liam closed his medical journal and stared intently at Ellis. What do you mean? Ellis took a deep breath and began to explain the situation, her family circumstances. The marriage as part of a charity initiative, and most importantly, that it would be a marriage in name only. So, Liam interjected quietly. I am to be used as a symbol for the Montague family's charity work? At those words, Ellis felt a pang of guilt. Indeed, that was exactly the case. This was an inhumane proposal, using a person as a tool. I'm sorry, Ellis said sincerely. But if you agree, I can also offer support for your return to the medical field. Wait, Liam raised his hand. Why are you making this proposal? It's clear from your expression that it's not your true desire. Ellis hesitated for a moment, then decided to speak the truth. It's at the direction of my stepmother, Vanessa, she confessed quietly. To be honest, I don't understand her true intentions either. But, I'm sure there's another motive hidden behind this proposal. I was hoping we could uncover it together. Liam's expression changed. You want to investigate the truth together? Yes, Ellis nodded. This proposal might be one-sided, but perhaps we can help each other. The morning sun cast long shadows between them. Passers-by occasionally glanced curiously at them. A wealthy-looking young woman talking earnestly with a homeless man certainly presented a strange sight. Please give me some time to think, Liam finally spoke after a long silence. I'll give you an answer tomorrow morning, here. Ellis stood up quietly. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. As she walked away, Ellis looked back. Liam had opened his medical journal again. But his eyes did not seem to follow the text. Perhaps he too was trying to make sense of this bizarre proposal. And neither of them knew yet. This strange encounter was about to change their lives significantly. The next morning, a thin mist hung over Central Park. Ellis walked toward the same bench as the day before. Would Liam be there? The answer was? Liam was already sitting on the bench, dressed in the same torn coat and sitting just as straight as the day before. Good morning, Ellis greeted him as he slowly looked up. I apologize for the sudden proposal yesterday, she said as she sat down on the neighboring bench. I thought about your proposal all night. Liam's voice was quiet. To be honest, I was going to refuse at first. Ellis silently nodded. It was a natural reaction. Anyone would question a sudden marriage proposal from a stranger. But, Liam continued, I realized I recognized the name of your stepmother, Vanessa. Ellis gasped. She used to work as a nurse at my father's hospital. Liam's gaze drifted off. Until just before his death. So, your answer is? I accept, Liam stated clearly. However, I have some conditions. Ellis leaned forward. Firstly, this must be a complete marriage of convenience. Our privacy should be respected. Yes. Secondly, I want my freedom to practice medicine to be guaranteed. Even if it's just as a volunteer. Of course. And thirdly, Liam looked directly into Ellis's eyes. I need you to share any information you have about your stepmother. As much as possible. A moment of silence passed. I am convinced that she had something to do with my father's death. Liam's voice was low but filled with determination. Could I have your help to uncover the truth? Ellis noticed an emotion rising within her. Was it fear, or perhaps anticipation? The prospect of uncovering Vanessa's past secrets stirred her heart. Understood, Ellis replied with equal sincerity. I too want to understand my stepmother's true intentions. Please let me help. In the morning haze, the two exchanged a firm handshake. It seemed to be more than just a contractual agreement. Almost like a pledge of comradeship. Let's apply for a marriage license at the city hall as soon as possible. Then, we can have the ceremony 24 hours later, Ellis suggested. After that, a simple ceremony at my father's house. Liam nodded quietly. Both understood that the life ahead would not be easy. However, they needed to perfectly play out this charade for their respective goals. A week later, a modest wedding ceremony was conducted. In the Montague family's study. Ellis wore a simple white dress, and Liam a borrowed navy suit. In front of an officiant prepared by William. They exchanged vows with subdued emotion. Vanessa watched with satisfaction. She had wanted a lavish ceremony at a luxury hotel, but surprisingly, she had easily accepted Ellis's wish for a modest wedding. Think of it as part of the charity work, Vanessa remarked with a faint smile. A simple ceremony might even attract more attention. After the ceremony, Liam was led to a guest house on the Montague estate. The building, formerly used as servants' quarters, had been quickly remodeled and prepared as their new home. "This is your room," Ellis said, opening the door to a room on the second floor. "I'll use the room across." Liam stepped quietly inside. It was modest but clean and equipped with the necessary furniture. He was slightly surprised to see a bookshelf filled with medical books. Per Ellis's instructions, Vanessa's voice came from behind him. "We want you to regain as much of your previous life as possible." Her words carried an implicit meaning. Liam turned around, meeting Vanessa's gaze. He felt a vague sense of déjà vu in her eyes. Certainly, he remembered seeing her at his father's hospital. But her eyes suggested something more. "Please make yourself comfortable," Vanessa said elegantly before turning on her heel and descending the stairs. At dusk, Ellis answered Liam's knock at her door. "Let's confirm the details of our future living arrangements," Liam began quietly. They moved to the living room on the first floor and sat facing each other. Outside, a gardener was silently tending to the flower beds. "Basically, this building is just for the two of us," Ellis started. "The staff only come twice a week to clean. As for meals, I'll cook," Liam interjected. "I can handle that much." Ellis looked surprised and asked, "You cook?" "I learned on the streets," Liam answered matter-of-factly. "How to prepare nutritionally balanced meals with limited ingredients." A moment of silence followed. Ellis felt the weight of Liam's words. "Then, I'll handle the grocery shopping," Ellis said. "And anything else we need." "That sounds good." Liam nodded, seeming slightly pleased. "And I'm free to go about my day, right?" "Yes, of course." "But..." "I understand. I'll keep up appearances." That was one of the conditions laid out by Vanessa. Liam had to always present himself as a fitting son-in-law for the Montague family. The night deepened. They said goodnight to each other and returned to their respective rooms. Ellis stood by the window, gazing at the mist drifting through the garden. The lights were still on in Vanessa's room in the main house. What plans might she be concocting now? Meanwhile, Liam pulled a medical book from the shelf and flipped through the pages. However, his eyes seemed to be drifting through distant memories rather than following the text. Thus began their strange cohabitation. Officially a married couple, yet strangers in practice. But neither of them realized yet. This unnatural distance between them was soon to change in unexpected ways. A week after the marriage, one night, as Ellis was organizing documents in her room, a determined expression crossed her face. An official document from the New York State Medical Licensing Board lay on her desk. Footsteps sounded in the hallway, and Ellis looked up. Liam had returned from his evening walk. Once she confirmed he had entered his room, Ellis stood up quietly. "Excuse me," Ellis knocked on Liam's room. And a slightly surprised come-in responded. It was their first late-night visit. "Do you have a moment?" Ellis gestured to the documents in her hand. "There's something I need to tell you." Liam closed his book and faced Ellis with a serious expression. "I've looked into your medical license," Ellis started frankly. "Of course, this might be an invasion of privacy. But..." Liam's expression stiffened momentarily, but Ellis continued with resolve. "The investigation is already complete. And the suspicion of medical malpractice has been entirely cleared. Your medical license is still valid." Silence fell. Liam stared at Ellis in disbelief. I didn't know, Liam's voice trembled. After those accusations, I lost everything and never verified the outcome. Yes. Likely, that was also calculated. Ellis chose her words carefully. To deprive you of the chance to discover the truth. Liam silently read the document. It clearly stated that his medical license was still valid. And more than half a year had passed since the conclusion of the investigation. Why go to such lengths? Liam asked quietly. Ellis thought for a moment before answering. Initially, I started investigating as a way to learn about my stepmother's plans. But she looked directly into Liam's eyes. I heard about your reputation as a doctor. About how earnestly and sincerely you dealt with your patients. Tears welled up in Liam's eyes. For someone who had begun to doubt even his own pride as a doctor. This truth was a profound relief. Also, Ellis smiled a bit shyly. You've been making breakfast every morning for the past week. You still care about others' health. Seeing that, I thought it was absurd. That someone like you could lose their medical credentials. I don't know what to say. Liam's words were filled with deep gratitude. It wasn't just thanks for confirming the documents. He was grateful for the new light she had brought into his life. From now on, Ellis said gently. Why not resume your activities as a doctor, within whatever capacity you can? If there's anything I can do. Liam nodded silently. Outside the window, the full moon quietly shone. It looked like a light of hope that had once again come into his life. A month had passed since they started their married life. Ellis paused in the kitchen, bathed in the morning light, as she watched Liam, who was wearing an apron and seriously making fried eggs. The sight was somewhat comical yet endearing. Good morning, Ellis greeted him. To which Liam responded with a slightly embarrassed look. Did I make too much again this morning? The kitchen counter was already lined with salad, soup, and toast. Perhaps due to his habits from working at the hospital, Liam's mornings were very early. But if I don't make your portion, you'll skip breakfast. Liam said while placing the fried eggs on a plate. I know your secretarial work is busy, but nutrition is important. Ellis was a bit surprised. She hadn't realized Liam had noticed her tendency to skip breakfast. It's a doctor's habit, Liam continued, having read her expression. Observing the health status of patients, no, of those around me. They began eating across from each other. The initial silence had been heavy, but lately, a strangely comfortable quiet had settled in. I might get home early today, Ellis said while sipping her coffee. Shall we go grocery shopping for dinner? Yes, Liam nodded. Actually, I have a recipe in mind. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was unusual to have visitors on a Wednesday. The maid's day off, especially at this time. When Ellis opened the door, a little boy stood there with a scraped knee, blood seeping through. The boy said with an anxious look. Is there a kind doctor who lives nearby? Liam immediately stood up and approached the boy. What happened? I fell off my bike. The boy's face looked close to tears. My mom said there's a kind doctor around here. Ellis saw a change in Liam's expression. It was a look of determination she had never seen before, the gaze of a physician. It's okay, Liam smiled gently, inviting the boy inside. Let's treat that right away. Ellis silently fetched the first aid kit that Liam had insisted on keeping just in case. Liam skillfully disinfected the wound and wrapped it with bandages. His movements were natural, as if he had been practicing medicine just yesterday. Does it hurt? Liam asked gently. No, the boy shook his head. Doctor, you're good at this. After the treatment, the boy happily went on his way. Ellis and Liam watched him leave from the doorstep. That was a fine treatment, Ellis commented. I'm glad it wasn't a serious injury, pride mixed in Liam's voice. It seems you're becoming quite famous among the children here, Ellis continued. They say there's a kind doctor. Liam looked surprised. Did you know? Yes, Ellis smiled. I've seen several children come for minor injuries these past 2 weeks. I'm sorry, Liam's tone suddenly turned apologetic. For the Montague family's reputation. No, Ellis cut him off quickly. On the contrary, I'm proud to have such a wonderful doctor as part of our. Her words faltered a bit. Family. At that moment, the atmosphere between them shifted. It was different from the formal relationship they had maintained before. Something warmer was blossoming. From now on, Ellis said with resolve, I'll take care of the medical supplies. And, if possible, how about we set up a small health clinic here in the guest house for the local children? Liam looked into Ellis's eyes deeply. He saw genuine compassion there. This proposal wasn't just for show, it was her sincere desire to help people. That's a very good idea, Liam responded with heartfelt thanks. They returned to the kitchen to continue their breakfast. But the air between them had clearly changed. Both felt an increasing understanding toward each other. About this evening's shopping, Liam said. Shall we pick out medical supplies together? Yes, Ellis nodded happily. Let's do that. Outside the window, the gentle spring sunlight bathed the garden flowers. It was as if the new bond of trust blooming between them was being blessed. Renovating one of the detached house's rooms didn't take much time. Ellis arranged a simple examination table and medical equipment. Clean white curtains hung by the windows, and the walls were adorned with brightly colored animal posters that children would like. Is this all right? Ellis asked, looking uncertain. It's more than enough. Liam responded, draping a new stethoscope around his neck, grateful. They decided to open this makeshift clinic 3 afternoons a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Initially, they thought they would only handle minor injuries and ailments from neighborhood kids. However, the reality far exceeded their expectations. It won't hurt, Liam assured a young boy with a scraped knee as he disinfected the wound. In the hallway, which served as a waiting area, 3 families were already waiting. Doctor, my child won't stop coughing, a young mother said worriedly. Fevers during the night. Another mother added, holding her infant. While handling the reception and preliminary consultations, Ellis assisted Liam with his examinations. His approach was extremely careful. He spoke gently to each child, attentively addressing the parents' concerns. Within a week, word of mouth began to spread. We don't have insurance and can't afford the hospital. My child isn't scared to come here. The number of visitors increased day by day. We won't be able to keep up at this rate, Liam said with a weary expression after a day's consultations. There are more cases requiring specialized tests. We're reaching the limits of our equipment. Ellis nodded silently. She had noticed it too. The cramped waiting room. The insufficient facilities. And above all, the presence of children who needed more comprehensive medical care. Actually, Ellis began quietly. We've received an offer from the free clinic on the east side. Liam looked up. They want you 2 days a week as a pediatrician, Ellis continued. Of course, we'd keep this clinic open, reducing it from 3 to 2 days. But add a free clinic. Hesitation mixed in Liam's voice. It's okay, Ellis asserted strongly. Your medical license is valid, and your qualifications are impeccable. In fact, they're eager to have you. That evening, after the last patient had left, the two stepped out into the garden of the annex. The evening sky was beautifully tinted with dusk. Seeing the children's smiles, Liam said quietly, I feel my mission as a doctor reaffirmed. Ellis watched Liam's profile. His expression bore certain pride and determination. We can help more children, Liam continued, looking up at the sky. I'll accept the offer from the free clinic. The next day, Ellis immediately began coordinating with the clinic. A week later, Liam's new sessions began at the East Side Free Clinic. However, the small health room in the annex did not disappear. Even though the days were reduced from 3 to 2, it continued to serve as a sanctuary for the children of the area. Its light never extinguished. In fact, by collaborating with the free clinic, it was able to offer more comprehensive medical services. I am honored to be given such an opportunity. Liam spoke earnestly at the East Side Free Clinic, with Ellis nodding in agreement beside him. No, Dr. Sanders, the facility director extended a warm hand. Having a distinguished doctor like you join us as a volunteer, and to have the support of the Montague Foundation, brings unparalleled hope to this community. Ellis, while filling out the necessary paperwork, glanced sideways at Liam's expression. The sparkle in his eyes as he looked around the examination room was something she had never seen before. We'll start with 2 days a week, Liam continued explaining. I'd like to handle mainly pediatric cases if possible. Yes, of course, the facility director nodded happily. In fact, managing the health of the children in this area has been a major challenge. The medical volunteering initiative Ellis proposed progressed smoother than expected. Her father William also promised full support, seeing it as a wonderful social contribution from their family business. On the first day of consultation, several families were already seated in the waiting room. Hello, Liam greeted gently. The first patient was an 8-year-old girl suffering from asthma symptoms. The medication is too expensive, her mother said apologetically. And our insurance has expired. It's okay, Liam reassured her while carefully checking her breathing with a stethoscope. Here, you can receive the necessary treatment for free. Outside the examination room, Ellis, while helping with paperwork, watched the proceedings. Liam attended to each patient with care, embodying the records of his past that she had researched. Doctor, a mother said tearfully after the consultation. I'm really glad we came here. Liam's eyes moistened. Ellis noticed him looking down to hide his emotions. During their lunch break, they decided to have a light meal on a bench in the nearby park. You seem to be enjoying this, Ellis offered him a warm coffee. Yes, Liam showed a genuine smile. I feel like I've regained my true self. Ellis hesitated slightly. We've also received requests for regular checkups from local schools and daycare centers. Liam showed a surprised look. Already? Yes. Your reputation is spreading, Ellis continued with a pleased expression. Especially your way with children. The afternoon consultations brought many patients. By evening, a local newspaper came to cover the story. They want to feature the new wind in community healthcare, supported by the Montague Foundation. An interview. Liam showed a bit of reluctance. "Let's do it," Ellis stated clearly. "We need to let more people know about this clinic." During the interview, Liam spoke quietly but with conviction. Medical care should be provided equally to everyone. No one should miss necessary treatments due to financial reasons. That is our wish. His words were prominently featured in the newspaper the next day. Reading the article, William promised further support and proposed expanding the clinic. At dusk, as they headed home after finishing the consultations, "I was actually worried," Ellis confessed quietly, "whether you would accept this activity." Liam stopped walking and looked at Ellis seriously. "I am grateful to you for understanding my commitment as a doctor." Streetlights began to light up one by one. They continued walking in silence, a comfortable silence that allowed them to feel each other's presence distinctly. When they returned home, Vanessa was waiting. "Great article," she held the newspaper. "This will surely enhance the Montague family's reputation." At her words, Liam and Ellis glanced at each other. Vanessa's true intentions were still unclear. But at least for now, their activities were bringing hope to many people. One late night after finishing his shift at the free clinic, Liam was helping organize old medical records. Ellis had already gone home, and he was alone. "Thank you," the facility director said as he was leaving. "All the records were scattered after that fire." "But to stay so late." "No," Liam smiled. "Organizing past records helps us understand the health trends in the community." After the director left, Liam continued to look through the records silently. Then, a particular file caught his eye. Dated 5 years ago. In the attending physician field was Edmund Sanders, his father's name. His hands trembled. He took a deep breath to regain his composure. The record contained his father's signature, detailing the patient's condition thoroughly. "But this is..." Liam frowned. The prescription details were clearly unusual, and the attached nursing record. The handwriting was familiar. "Vanessa." He muttered her name, and memories flooded back. His father's final days. The unnatural situations at the hospital. And Vanessa's demeanor just before his father's death. Liam hurriedly checked other records. Similar unusual prescriptions surfaced in multiple files. All signed by his father, but clearly forged. And Vanessa's signature was on all of them. No way. The clock had already struck midnight. Liam copied the necessary records and rushed home. When he arrived, Ellis was waiting with a worried look. "I'm sorry I'm late." Liam started to apologize when Ellis quietly said, "Something happened, didn't it?" They moved to the living room of the annex. Only the moonlight faintly illuminated the room. "I found something," Liam spoke in a hushed tone. "About my father and your stepmother." Ellis gasped. Liam began to explain about the unusual prescriptions, the forged signatures, and Vanessa's consistent presence in all the records. "It's not just that," Liam continued. "A man's name, Roman Carville. He was an executive at a pharmaceutical company and was on the local medical board at that time." "Roman." Ellis's face paled. "An old friend of your stepmother. He's been frequenting our house lately. My father always explained him as an old medical acquaintance." Ellis's voice faltered. She had felt that their relationship was more than just friendly. But she had never mentioned it in front of her father. "We can deduce from these records," Liam's voice trembled. "My father was aware of their malpractice." price inflation, phantom billing, and irregularities in clinical trials. And your father was. Ellis searched for the right words. Yes, Liam clenched his fist. Probably he was about to expose them. Right before. Ellis suddenly placed her hand over Liam's. She could feel his hand was cold and trembling. Our marriage too, Ellis said quietly. Must be related to this. Liam nodded. To keep me under surveillance, and if I made any moves. To be able to act immediately, Ellis finished his sentence. The moonlight cast their shadows on the floor, strangely overlapping each other. Ellis, Liam said with determination. I can't involve you any further. No, Ellis interrupted immediately. I'm already involved. Besides. She looked at Liam earnestly. I won't let you face this alone. Just then, the doorbell rang. So late at night. They exchanged looks. Carefully peeking through the curtain gap. A luxury car was parked outside. Roman was in the driver's seat. Hide, Ellis whispered. The records too. Liam quickly hid the records and went upstairs. Ellis slowly approached the door. The truths discovered tonight must not yet be known to anyone else. They were the first and crucial steps in uncovering the truth about his father's death. Brother. At the East Side Free Clinic, when that voice echoed, Liam couldn't tell if what he saw was real or a dream. Standing at the reception was unmistakably his brother Elliot. They shared a similar build and eye color. Yet, the brother he had been separated from in childhood and hadn't seen for over 10 years had grown up completely. Elliot. Liam called out his brother's name with a trembling voice. Elliot nodded to the patients in the waiting room before entering Liam's office. As the door closed, they embraced tightly. You were alive. Elliot's voice was also shaking. Just then, Ellis came into the office with coffee. Realizing what was happening, she started to leave, but Elliot spoke up. Ellis, could we have a moment of your time? The three of them used their lunch break to go to a nearby cafe. At a quiet corner table, Elliot began to speak softly. I had completely lost track of you, brother. Then I saw the newspaper article about your rise from homelessness and your marriage. And I started looking for you right away. Elliot lowered his voice. I've been conducting my own investigation. Liam and Ellis leaned in closer. Nurse Vanessa Hart and Roman Carville, an executive at a pharmaceutical company. Following the connections between these two, various wrongdoings came to light. Elliot pulled out his smartphone and started showing them data. Fabricated clinical trials. Inflated drug prices. Forged approval documents. All perfectly matching the records Liam had found. Ellis chose her words carefully. That nurse, Vanessa, is currently my stepmother. I know, Elliot nodded. That's why I came here today. One reason I wanted to reunite with my brother was to share this truth. Why? Liam asked. How could you investigate this far? I work at a medical IT company. Data analysis is my specialty. Elliot answered with a hint of pride. After our father's death, I pursued this field, believing I could someday uncover the truth. The three of them continued sharing information, forgetting even that their coffee was getting cold. Elliot's research was thorough and included many facts that Liam and the others did not know. My father had indeed discovered their wrongdoing, Elliot said with a trembling voice. And he was about to expose them when. Wait, Ellis suddenly leaned forward. That time, my stepmother suddenly married my father. The three exchanged looks. Everything was beginning to connect. This coming Saturday, Ellis said resolutely. Our wedding reception will be held in the main building. The media will also be there. Ms. Elliot looked at her intently. You don't mean? Yes, Ellis nodded. Why don't we reveal all the truths there? But, Liam said worriedly. Your position. It's okay, Ellis placed both hands on the table. I'll talk to my father beforehand. He'll surely understand. I'll help too, Elliot immediately offered. I can submit the results of the data analysis as evidence. It had started to rain outside. The way the raindrops trailed down. The cafe window seemed almost like a blessing on their resolution. Elliot, Liam placed his hand on his brother's shoulder. You've been alone since our father's death. You too, tears shone in Elliot's eyes. From now on, let's fight this together. Ellis silently watched the two. She understood. This reunion was no mere coincidence. It was necessary, all to uncover the truth. So, Ellis said quietly. Let's start planning specifically. The three leaned in closer and began discussing preparations for Saturday. The rain outside grew heavier, but their resolve became even firmer. Father, I have something to tell you. In the Montague family's study, Ellis was desperately trying to steady her trembling hands. William noticed his daughter's serious expression and put down his pen. What's wrong? Is there a problem with the wedding reception preparations? Ellis took a deep breath and steeled herself. It's about my stepmother. And about the wrongdoing in the pharmaceutical development department of your company. William's expression froze. Ellis carefully explained the evidence she had discovered one by one. The connection between Roman and Vanessa. The fabricated clinical trials. The inflated drug prices. And the link to Edmund Sanders' death. No way. The color drained from William's face. Vanessa has. Father, Ellis continued quietly. I plan to reveal all the evidence at the reception on Saturday. But I wanted you to know beforehand. A long silence followed. William stood up and walked to the window. I've been blind, his voice was hoarse. To everything, you and the company. Father. No, William turned around, his eyes filled with firm resolve. I support your decision. In the annexes study, Liam and Elliot were organizing the evidence. This is a report handwritten by our father, Elliot pointed to the tablet screen. And this is the one after it was tampered with. The results of the handwriting analysis are also ready. You've gathered it well, Liam put his arm around his brother's shoulder. But Elliot looked worried. Are you sure it's okay to disclose it at that event? Vanessa and the others will surely resist. That's why it's at the reception. Ellis had entered the room. In front of many witnesses and under the watchful eyes of the media. Ellis continued. They will have no escape. What about father? Liam asked cautiously. He will cooperate, tears shone in Ellis's eyes. He wants to know the truth too. The three began their final check on the progression of the reception. The order of presenting the evidence, what to talk about, and how to handle expected reactions. They meticulously reviewed everything. During the speech, Ellis pointed to the diagram. Elliot, you'll prepare the presentation here. Where will the journalists sit? Liam checked. Here. To ensure all evidence is properly recorded. As they were finalizing the preparations, Ellis's phone rang. It was Vanessa. "I'll be late for tomorrow's final rehearsal," Vanessa's voice came through. "Roman and I have an important meeting." Ellis closed her eyes for a moment. Understood. After hanging up, the three silently exchanged looks. The clock quietly ticked away the time. Elliot asked worriedly, "Are you really okay with this?" "They are your family, after all." Ellis stared out the window as she replied, "There's no turning back now. For your father's honor and for our future." Liam quietly held Ellis's hand. Though it was cold, he could feel a definite strength in it. "Just 2 more days," Liam said. "Let's end this." As the sun set, preparations for the party were underway in the main building. But only the light from the annex shone quietly in the darkness. In 2 days, all truths would be revealed here. And a new life would begin. The grand hall of the Montague house was adorned with lavish decorations. The wedding reception guests ranged from high society elites to staff. From the free clinic, a diverse group indeed. The journalists who had come to cover the event seemed overwhelmed by the atmosphere of the venue. Vanessa was performing flawlessly as the perfect hostess, while Roman, as one of the guests, elegantly sipped champagne. There was no hint on their faces of the impending revelations. "Is everything ready?" Ellis asked through her earpiece microphone, checking in with Elliot. "No problems," Elliot's voice returned through the earpiece. "The presentation is all set up." In a corner of the venue, William was conversing with journalists. His expression was sterner than usual, though unnoticed by others. "It's almost time for the speech." Vanessa approached Ellis, her voice carrying a faint hint of triumph. "Yes," Ellis responded with a smile. "It's been a wonderful event, and I'm truly grateful." Liam stood on the stage and took hold of the microphone. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming to our wedding reception today." Liam's voice was stronger than usual. "I would like to take this opportunity to share a certain truth." Vanessa's expression changed slightly. 5 years ago, a doctor in this town lost his life. That doctor was my father, Edmund Sanders. A murmur spread through the audience. "We have uncovered the truth about his death." The first piece of evidence appeared on the screen. With Elliot's guidance, one piece of evidence after another was displayed. "These are records of fabricated clinical trials." Liam's voice resonated across the hall. "And this is proof of inflated drug prices." Just as Roman attempted to stand, a police officer quietly positioned himself behind him. This was arranged by William in advance. "And those involved in this fraud." Ellis stepped onto the stage beside Liam. "Are present here in this venue." Vanessa's face turned pale. "Mr. Roman Carville and—" Ellis looked directly at Vanessa. "My stepmother, Vanessa Hart." "Stop!" Vanessa shouted. "This is all a misunderstanding." It is not a misunderstanding." A new voice filled the hall. All eyes turned toward the entrance. Standing there was Father. Liam's voice shook. Edmund Sanders slowly walked forward. "You're alive?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "Yes," Edmund answered quietly. "I barely escaped your attempted murder. And have been gathering evidence in hiding." The room erupted in commotion. Cameras flashed as reporters scrambled to capture the moment. "You planned all this." Roman glared at Vanessa. "You used me." "No." Vanessa shouted back. "It was you who A bitter argument broke out between the two. The police officers gradually surrounded them. Edmund stepped onto the stage and embraced his sons. Liam, Elliot. I'm sorry for the worry I caused you over all these years. Watching the scene, Ellis moved toward William. You did well. William hugged his daughter tightly. I'm sorry I was so blind. As the police began to escort Vanessa and Roman away, Edmund addressed the guests, revealing the entire truth and explaining why he had to wait until now to act. That night, the moon shone quietly over the Montague family's garden. The wedding reception, originally meant to be a grand celebration, had ended in an unexpected way. But it also marked a new beginning. Ellis and Liam sat together on a stone bench in the garden. I never imagined, Ellis said, that your father was alive. Neither did I. Liam looked up at the night sky. But strangely, I'm not angry. I think it was his way of fighting. What will happen from here, I wonder? That, Liam took Ellis's hand, we'll find out together. Under the moonlight, their rings glowed softly. They were no longer symbols of a false contract, but rather a bond forged in pursuit of truth. The next morning, the newspapers reported on the events. At the Montague family wedding reception. Massive fraud shakes medical industry. Doctor returns from the dead after 5 years. The ruin of a noble family company through greed, the headlines vary. But they all pointed to the same truth. In the police interrogation room, Vanessa had lost all semblance of her former grace. We've heard everything, the detective stated calmly. Mr. Roman Carville has also admitted to conspiring with you. Vanessa sat with her head down. There was no room left for denial. The fact that Edmund had been alive overturned all of her plans. Meanwhile, at the Montague residence, William faced Ellis. I owe you an apology. William's voice was filled with deep regret. For allowing Vanessa into our home, for the suffering you endured. No, Ellis held her father's hand. You couldn't have known her true nature. But, William gazed out the window. Such massive fraud was happening in the company's pharmaceutical development department, and I didn't see it. As a business leader, as a father, This is just the beginning, Ellis looked firmly into her father's eyes. Let's rebuild the company together. That afternoon, a press conference was held. William took full responsibility and promised to revamp the management structure. He also announced that Dr. Edmund Sanders would join as an advisor to the new pharmaceutical development division. With my beloved daughter Ellis and my new son Liam. William spoke with conviction. We will strive to contribute to healthcare as it was meant to be. After the press conference, Edmund visited the place that was once his home, along with his sons. This is where it all began, Edmund said quietly. On that day, I had uncovered conclusive evidence of Vanessa and Roman's fraud. But that's why they targeted you. Liam's fists trembled. Yes. But I was prepared. I faked my death to escape their pursuit and gather irrefutable evidence. Why didn't you tell us? Elliot's voice caught in his throat. My sons, Edmund placed his hands on their shoulders. I couldn't risk involving you in danger. Especially Elliot, who was still too young. In the evening, a call came from the court. It was news that Vanessa and Roman's detention had been confirmed. With this, Ellis ended the call and told Liam. Everything is finally over. No, Liam smiled gently. This is the real beginning. That night, a small family gathering was held in the Montague family's garden. William, Edmund, Liam, Elliot, and Ellis confirmed their new bonds under the moonlight. Cheers, William raised his glass. To the truth, and to the birth of a new family. The clink of glasses softly echoed under the night sky. A quiet sound of victory for those who had endured long hardships. Ellis gazed at Liam's profile. No longer just a marriage of convenience. It was a genuine bond formed by two people who sought and discovered the truth together. On a quiet Sunday morning, Ellis was alone tending to the roses in the Montague family's garden, taking over the area that Vanessa had once managed, intent on transforming it anew. Need some help? Turning around, Ellis saw William standing there. It was rare for her father to come to the garden. "Father, I wanted to talk to you properly." William sat down on a bench next to the roses. "Just us." Amid the morning dew, father and daughter faced each other. "I failed to protect you." William's voice was filled with deep regret. "I let Vanessa into our home and blindly followed her, pushing you into that marriage without considering your feelings." "Father," Ellis removed her gardening gloves and sat next to him. "Yes, there were tough times. But as a result..." She glanced towards the annex. "I gained a son like Liam, and I am happy." William watched his daughter's expression. "I heard it was initially a marriage of convenience, but looking at you two now." Ellis's cheeks turned pink. From now on, William stood up and reached for a rose bush. "I'll come to the garden more often. I want to create a new garden with you." Tears welled up in Ellis's eyes. Her father's words carrying a significance beyond just gardening. Meanwhile, Liam was discussing a new project with Edmund at the free clinic. "Son," Edmund sipped his coffee. "I truly regret not being able to see you for these 5 years." "Don't apologize anymore." Liam smiled gently. "You were fighting to protect us. And Elliot. He's finding his own path now. He wants to contribute to medicine using IT." Liam said proudly. "Your spirit is certainly being carried on by us." Edmund silently observed his son's profile, still seeing the promising young doctor from their hospital days. About the clinic's operations going forward, Liam spread out a business plan. "With the Montague family's support, we can provide proper medical care to more people." "Yes," Edmund nodded. "That's exactly what we should strive for." The two continued to detail the new project in the clinic bathed in morning light. Occasionally, Edmund looked at his son with quiet pride. In the evening, Ellis and Liam shared their day's events in the living room of the annex. "Father's going to help with the gardening," Ellis reported happily. "That's great," Liam smiled. "I've also started a new project with my father." They smiled quietly at each other. Outside the window, the setting sun tinted the new garden with a gentle sway. "Hey," Ellis said a bit shyly. "Our marriage was initially just a contract." "Yes," Liam took her hand. "But now..." Without needing to exchange more words, their feelings were aligned. In pursuing the truth, they had found a genuine connection. "I'm really glad we became a real family," Ellis said softly. Liam hugged her gently. Together, they had healed their wounded hearts and found new happiness, a meeting of fate like no other. As the first stars of the night began to twinkle, newly planted rose saplings in the Montague family's garden slept with hopes for tomorrow. "Dr. Sanders, welcome." The director of the New York General Hospital stood up from his desk with a broad smile, offering a firm handshake. "We are delighted to have you as the head of pediatrics. Your reputation is very well known to us." From the conference room window, the morning sunlight streamed in. Liam, who had once lived on the streets, now sat here taking in this momentous occasion. "I am honored to be given such an opportunity," Liam responded earnestly. "However, I have one condition." "What might that be?" "I would like to continue treating patients at the free clinic for 2 days a week." The director smiled warmly. "Of course. In fact, as a hospital, we will fully support your commitment to community health care." Meanwhile, Ellis was in a Montague Pharmaceuticals conference room, explaining the establishment of a new foundation. The Montague Medical Care Foundation, Ellis spoke confidently, is dedicated to assisting those who cannot afford proper medical care due to financial reasons. The faces of the executives softened as she spoke. Specifically, the foundation will support the operation of free clinics, subsidize medical costs, and provide medical education programs, with a particular focus on helping children. Ellis advanced the slides. William looked proudly at his daughter. No longer just his secretary, but a strong and compassionate woman. "I will also fully support the foundation's activities." Edmund stood and spoke. "As an advisor in the Pharmaceutical Development Department, I aim to work on more affordable and effective drug development." After the meeting, Ellis was called into her father's study. "You did great," William said, embracing his daughter unusually tightly. "Your mother would be proud." Ellis fought back tears as she was held in her father's arms. At dusk, Liam and Ellis stood on the roof of the free clinic. "Congratulations on becoming head of department," Ellis said, kissing Liam on the cheek. "Congratulations to you too, for becoming the chairperson of the foundation," Liam replied with a gentle smile. They watched the city lights begin to glow and shared their dreams for the future. "I want to expand the activities of this foundation and clinic, not just in New York but also to other cities," Ellis spoke passionately. "Yes," Liam nodded. "Healthcare is a right for everyone. I also want to use my position at the hospital to enhance the education of young doctors." "It's strange," Ellis looked up at the sky. "Our marriage began as a sham, yet here we are, dreaming the same dreams." "It was fate," Liam took her hand. "Meeting you, choosing this path." The night breeze caressed their hair. Somewhere in the city, a siren sounded. Someone needed medical care. "Hey," Ellis suddenly looked intently into Liam's eyes. "Would you take charge of the new pediatric ward project?" "What?" "The foundation's first project. It's been approved by the board." Liam was speechless with emotion. With his wife's support, and now a new family, he had come this far. Together, they would continue to pursue their dream in medicine. "Thank you," he said earnestly. "Let's keep going together." "Yes," Ellis smiled broadly. "Let's change the world a little at a time, in our own way." At the construction site of the new ward in Winter Sunshine, Liam and Ellis reviewed the blueprints for Montague Children's Hospital, a name laden with both families' aspirations. "Let's set up a play area here," Liam pointed on the blueprint. "A space where hospitalized children can find a little joy." "Yes," Ellis agreed fervently. "And on this wall, we'll have murals of fairy tales painted by local artists, funded by the foundation." The project manager approached them. "Everything is progressing smoothly. The first phase of construction should be completed next month." This hospital was the culmination of their dreams. A new type of children's hospital combining the latest medical facilities funded by the Montague Medical Care Foundation with Liam's experience in pediatric care. embodying their creed to provide the best healthcare to all children, regardless of economic circumstances. By the way, Ellis tapped Liam's arm. Are you ready for this afternoon's lecture? Yes, Liam smiled. It's about community medicine for young doctors. Elliot will also join us with a presentation on telemedicine systems. It was part of a medical education program jointly hosted by the foundation and the hospital, combining Liam's experience and Elliot's IT expertise in an innovative approach that was highly regarded among young doctors. In the afternoon lecture hall, eager young doctors gathered. My experience living on the streets, Liam began quietly, made me rethink what healthcare really means. Not just curing diseases, but also supporting patients' lives. Isn't that what true healthcare is? The screen showed activities at the free clinic, followed by Elliot standing on stage with a tablet. With this system, we can connect in real time with patients in remote areas, Elliot explained as the audience buzzed. Our medical care no longer needs to be limited by location. After the lecture, Ellis discussed the next project with foundation staff. The educational support program is also going well, a young staff member reported. Our scholarship scheme for students in financial difficulty who aspire to enter medicine is getting a lot of positive feedback. Wonderful, Ellis nodded contentedly. When they become doctors, I'm sure they'll treat their patients with the same care. In the evening, in the hospital's rooftop garden, Liam and Ellis shared the day's events. Seeing the spark in the young doctor's eyes, Liam said, I feel hopeful. Yes, Ellis agreed. Our experiences are being passed on to the next generation. It's thanks to you, Liam looked at her seriously. None of this would have happened without you. No, Ellis shook her head. This is our dream. The city's hustle and bustle was a distant sound. At the new ward construction site, the ongoing work sounded like a melody of hope to them. A boy who visited the free clinic the other day, Liam remembered, said he wants to be a doctor like Dr. Sanders when he grows up. Ellis smiled. By the time that boy becomes a doctor, there will surely be even better forms of healthcare. Yes, Liam nodded. We are laying the groundwork for that. As the sun set over the city, they looked at the architectural plan of the new ward. It was more than just a building design. It was the realization of their dreams and hopes. And those dreams were assuredly being passed on to the next generation. In the spring evening, Liam and Ellis sat on a bench in a park near the hospital, watching children play. Liam, Ellis started a bit nervously. Have you thought about us having children? Liam appeared surprised, but soon smiled warmly. I've thought about it, but I wasn't sure how you felt. I've been thinking a lot recently, Ellis continued, watching the playground. I want our children to have the same compassionate spirit. They sat quietly, watching the children in the sunset glow. Their marriage, which began as a contract, had grown into a deep love. Now contemplating nurturing new life. Actually, Liam spoke softly, there's been an offer from a pediatric hospital in Boston. Ellis leaned in. They want to start a medical program for children from economically challenged families, based on our work. That's wonderful. But Liam hesitated a bit. It would mean sometimes going to Boston. I don't want to miss time with you. You should go, Ellis held his hand. And when I can, I'll join you. Besides, she smiled meaningfully. We should do what we can before our family grows. Liam hugged her tightly. Really, are you sure? Yes. I want to share our experiences with more people. And Ellis blushed slightly. I'd like to tell our children about those experiences someday. The laughter of children echoed through the park, sounding like the melody of the future to them. So, Liam stood up. Let's talk at home tonight. About Boston and our future. Yes, Ellis stood, threading her arm through his. Tonight, I'll cook. We can't manage parenting with just your recipes. Laughing together, they left the park in the evening glow. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they were no longer afraid. They had the certainty of walking together. And one day, they dreamed quietly. They would spend time in this park with their own children.